Instead of digging coal out from underground today, entire mountaintops are being blasted away. Giant digging machines 20 stories tall, with shovels big enough to move 150 tons at a time, pull the rock and dirt away, exposing the coal, which is then scooped up and hauled off. And then the stuff they blasted is dumped down into the valleys and the streams that run through them.
It's the most devastating thing that's perpetrated on the people of the state of West Virginia.
I'm Mike Wallace.
I'm Morley Safer.
I'm Ed Bradley.
I'm Steve Croft.
I'm Leslie Stahl. Those stories and Andy Rooney tonight on 60 Minutes.
All across America, big industry and the nation's environmentalists are in a constant and sometimes bitter tug of war. The environmentalists worry that this country's land and water and air are being put in jeopardy by industry's preoccupation with progress and profits. And nowhere has that battle come into sharper focus than in West Virginia, where coal has long been king. For it is there in the mountain state that a controversial method of coal mining has spawned a lawsuit that some believe could kill coal mining in that state. If you don't live in West Virginia, why should you care? Because some of the best coal in America is produced there, in a country that still depends on coal for more than half the electricity we use. This is what that lawsuit's all about. Instead of digging coal out from underground today, entire mountaintops are being blasted away. It's called Mountaintop Removal, blown up with blasts 100 times the force of the Oklahoma City bomb. Giant digging machines 20 stories tall, with shovels big enough to move 150 tons at a time, pull the rock and dirt away, exposing the coal, which is then scooped up and hauled off. And then the stuff they blasted is dumped down into the valleys and the green hollows and the streams that run through them.
It's the most devastating thing that's perpetrated on the people of the state of West Virginia.
84-year-old Ken Heckler is West Virginia's Secretary of State. He's one of the few state officials opposed to mountaintop removal.
Which rapes the land and also hurts those people that live below the mining areas.
The coal companies say they have to mine this way now to compete with the lower production costs of Wyoming and other states. But the folks who live near these sites, some of them within just 100 yards of the blast, say that mountaintop removal is flat out ruining their lives.
And it would be just like a bulldozer running up against your house and shaking your house.
My sheetrock's falling off the wall, the drywall's coming down.
This come 25 feet from my bedroom. It went up over 1,000 feet and come over the ridge from where they was mined behind my house.
It was so hard that both doors blowed open and the porches lifted up.
And these blasts would bring such a cloud of dust over your home.
I've worked all my life. I've worked 2 jobs to have my home. And now I'm sitting here seeing it being destroyed.
Residents like these say the blasts have ruined their drinking water wells, and they fear it will contaminate their groundwater, or that all of the enveloping dust will cause them serious health problems.
Their ancestors came in here to find a good, safe, undisturbed area where they built their homes, and all of a sudden, up above them, the coal company, which owns probably 75% of the land in southern West Virginia, comes in and without any by your leave begins to 24-hour round-the-clock operation that really pushes those people out. They have to sell their homes at a reduced price, and then they have to go elsewhere.
That's just what happened to Blair, West Virginia. Some 300 families used to live here. Today, it's almost a ghost town with less than 60 families. The coal company simply bought lots of folks out. Jim Wheatley, though, is one of the few who has refused to go.
When I was a kid, right here in Pigeon Roost, there was 26 homes. Now, I'm the only home.
For 200 years, his family has lived in this small valley near Blair, Pigeon Roost Hollow it's called. And now the coal company wants to buy him out, too, so they can blast the mountaintop above and fill up his hollow with dirt, rocks, debris. So all of this would be flattened?
All this will be flattened.
And what happens to it after that?
The same thing that's happened to this right over here. Miles and miles and miles of nothing. There's not even a tree on it.
A retired miner, Jim Weekly, was injured years ago. Now he gets $697 a month in disability. He says the coal company has offered him more than $500,000 for his tiny piece of land. For the house, the sheds, and how much land?
7/10 of an acre.
But Jim Weekly wouldn't budge, and he decided to file a lawsuit to try to stop the coal company. He needed a lawyer, so he drove to Charleston, the capital, and there he found Joe Lovett. It was Lovett's first day as a lawyer, and this was his first case. And you brought the lawsuit not against the mining companies, but against
the state and federal governments, particularly the West Virginia Division of Environmental Protection.
And that lonely lawsuit would become one of the most significant in state history, for it said, in effect, that the state DEP, the Division of Environmental Protection, the agency responsible for regulating the coal mines, was simply not enforcing the law. That for years, it had allowed coal companies all across the state to dump hundreds of millions of tons of rock and dirt down into the hollows.
The West Virginia Division of Environmental Protection had just stopped enforcing the law. I don't know if they ever enforced the law when it came to coal mining, but certainly when we went and looked at the files, it was clear that it was not enforcing the law at all.
The heart of the complaint was that streams that ran free for more than 6 months out of the year were being snuffed out, killed off, by those tons of rock and dirt the industry was dumping into the hollows. But the DEP and the coal industry executives insist they have been following the law and not destroying those streams.
First of all, we don't stop the streams.
Bill Rainey is president of the West Virginia Coal Association. He says those streams are simply rechanneled.
If there is, in fact, water there, they will continue to flow.
Rainey also says that when the mining's done, a lot of the dirt is put back. And what's left, he says, eventually becomes landscaped meadows like these, where West Virginians can look forward to future economic development, airstrips, shopping malls, factories, prisons. Well, both sides argued their cases for much of last year in the court of Federal Chief Judge Charles Hayden, a Republican, a longtime conservative. And last October, the judge handed down his decision. He ruled that West Virginia's mountaintop mines had indeed been violating the nation's mining and clean water laws for years. And that decision sent shockwaves across the state. Up in Washington, the state's senior Senator Robert Byrd lambasted the decision.
But the court was wrong.
And blasted the judge on the Senate floor.
The court was wrong.
Senator Byrd tried to lobby the Congress to undo the judge's decision, but he failed. Down in West Virginia, the state's governor, Cecil Underwood, declared a virtual state of emergency. One of the coal companies had already shut down a mine, laying off hundreds of workers, and blamed it on the lawsuit. Angry miners had marched on the Capitol. The governor said the judge's decision meant an end to the big tax revenues from the mines that West Virginia depends upon. And you called it the bleakest day in the history of West Virginia.
For a very good reason. It effectively closes coal mining. And the jobs that are here are gone.
That I don't understand. Why will it eliminate coal mining?
Because it eliminates the placement of waste material. And one cannot mine coal without having waste material.
But lots of folks here believe that is pure bunkum, that the judge never had said that all mines had to close.
It was pure hyperbole. It was incorrect. The judge's order did nothing more than say that future mines must comply with the law. He did not shut down ongoing mines.
The state's leading newspaper, the Charleston Gazette, defended the judge's decision, calling the coal industry's reaction, quote, pure hysteria. And critics accused the governor of creating a false economic crisis. The governor, himself a former coal company executive, has often been criticized as a tool of the industry.
The last 3 directors of the DEP have all come from the coal industry. They've all been appointed by Governor Underwood, and it's an agency that's run by and for the coal industry. They work together to make sure that the coal companies can mine in any way that they see fit.
The fact is that your critics say that it is the coal industry that controls the Department of Environmental Protection.
Well, I say to you, that's not true.
But during the governor's last campaign, the coal industry was his biggest contributor. They gave him $250,000 for his election race and another $250,000 for the most lavish inaugural party in state history. Now, why in the world would the coal industry come up with $500,000 for Cecil Underwood to help him get elected and then to help him throw an inaugural party?
I collected great sums of money for both the campaign and for the inaugural party. And the inaugural party was a celebration by the people of the state.
The coal industry also gave big campaign cash to the candidates who wound up as Senate President and Speaker of the House in the West Virginia legislature. And Senator Byrd, too. Again, Secretary of State Ken Heckler.
The people, of course, are prisoners of the coal industry and the union. And even those people that try to speak out against it, they find that the ruling powers from the governor on down are going to be prejudiced in favor of the coal industry.
These people, they're just being, in effect, sacrificed in the name of progress.
We have to deal with this kind of problem all the time, and I certainly sympathize with people who have any kind of problems, environment or industry. I also sympathize with all these people who are losing jobs.
The governor's talking about laid-off miners like Terry Vance.
To put it in real blunt terms, you'd had, on average, men that made $3,000 a month net are now down to $1,270 a month net.
And that's for unemployment.
3 weeks from now, we won't be drawing anything.
Nothing.
Nothing. And there's no jobs like the ones we had. We'll just have to take and get out and do whatever we can to feed our families and to educate our children.
But Joe Lovett says taking away miners' jobs was never the intent of the lawsuit.
There are other ways to mine the coal. We're not suggesting that coal mining should stop in southern West Virginia. We are only suggesting that coal should be mined according to the law.
But Alfred Nelson, another laid-off miner, doesn't buy that.
To me, they are extreme environmentalists. They have one major goal: the complete elimination and the destruction of the mining industry in the state of West Virginia.
I'm not an environmentalist. I'm a person who lived in Blair for 40 years. You're destroying my home and my family, so is it going to be me as a sacrifice for you to have a job, or is it me as a sacrifice and get out where I've lived all my life? I don't think so.
While the coal companies appeal the judge's ruling, the blasts go on. If Jim Wheatley prevails, the hollows and streams will no longer be smothered with all of this stuff. And if the coal companies win, West Virginians will see a lot more noise, dust, and debris.